Well, welcome back, friends, to the outpost at Lantern One, and joining me for day tripping with Caribou Dave. Today we went to Fort King National Historic Site in the city of Ocala. Spoke with an archaeologist who gave me an impromptu interpretive explanation of what he was doing, plus some of the things about the Fort King Historic Site, and that was kind of cool. Had a little issue with the SD card in the camera, and I switched to the action camera, and apparently had pocket lint stuffed in that one, so it went from clear to kind of muffled. So I apologize for the audio ahead of time. So you're looking for the blacksmith shop?
Yes. So what happened is the colleagues in 2009, 2010 did basically a series of shovel tests around the entire property.
Okay.
And so in this area they found a particularly high amount of potential smithing debris.
Okay.
Metal waste and stuff. So as part of this project, basically to slowly build up the park. So we did excavations a few years ago ahead of the reconstruction of the fort. So the next building they want to reconstruct is the Blacksmith.
Okay, that'll be kind of cool. And do like live demo and kind of thing? Awesome.
It'll be a place where people will be able to, I think, rent out and teach classes and stuff. So basically a public access blacksmith shop.
Okay, cool.
So that'll be very unique for the city of Ocala.
So are you trying to locate the actual, like, the structure itself, or?
Yeah, pretty much trying to see the layout of it, and then trying to see if, basically, what were the activities there. Was it just simple smithing, farrier's work? Was there maybe any gunsmithing going involved, which doesn't seem to be the case? Was there smelting, were they basically coming in with bar stock? Were they having to do anything with ore? So mostly what we found thus far is, the entire site is covered with, historic and military debris, glass, historic ceramics, nails, military buttons, pieces of lead shot like this right here.
So what's the history of the, what's the time period and everything the fort was
So
here?
the place was constructed in 1827,
Okay.
and it was basically meant to be a fort on the north end of the Seminole Reservation.
Okay.
And it was basically a request by the military commander down here, and specifically the Indian agent.
Okay.
Because his agency was located about 6 miles to the west, and he felt more comfortable if this was here.
If he had a fort around him to protect him from
Basically, yeah. So technically the fort was here to help the Seminole, but in reality it was a distribution point for supplies, the stuff that they were supposed to hand out as part of the agreement for the treaty.
Did they hold up their end of that bargain?
The U.S. in no way held up any of
did they hose them over like everybody else
Pretty
did?
much. And a recent book by Chris Monaco came out, which basically just talks about that it was Andrew Jackson's complete intent, that he had no intention of ever honoring the treaty. And that's why basically as soon as he came in office, they went and renegotiated a second treaty.
Yeah.
So within 10 years, they had two treaties that one set up a reservation, and then immediately afterwards said, okay, you guys all have to move. So basically this fort, along with the fort in Tampa Bay called Fort Brooke, became the seat of the war. So
Okay.
most of the war was commanded either from here or there, and these were basically kind of lone outposts in the middle of the wilderness.
Which war? 18?
Second Seminole War.
Okay.
So this goes from 1835 through 1842.
Okay.
So this fort was constructed in 1827. It was actually abandoned during the first year of the war because during the summer, with the heat, a lot of the insects, basically disease run rampant. And
Yeah.
so they would basically have a cessation of the war during the summer,
Right.
in which case the Seminoles were basically able to go back to all their other villages, plant crops, harvest, reorganize, and then the military planned to resume action in the following winter. The territorial governor had other plans. He wanted to keep action going and eventually did his own campaign, but these forts were abandoned regardless. And so the Seminole came, burned the place sometime around June 1836, and then it was reconstructed in early 1837. And then the fort persisted till I think 1844. It was the initial basically the county seat, the courthouse, essentially.
For Ocala or for?
And for Ocala, and then they went ahead, dismantled this place, and founded the actual town.
Okay, that's cool.
A few miles to the west.
That's cool.
Yeah, so Basically, what we're looking at here is probably a blacksmith shop associated with the second fort, because we associate any of the structures with the first fort would have been burned.
Right.
So the main thing that we're seeing is...
Yeah, what strata are you? How far down are you?
So basically, we're here about 2 feet down. And this yellow fill sand here is the fill sand that was placed before the fort was reconstructed. The fort's actually underneath that area, but you've got 3 to 9 feet of fill sand so that the modern construction impacts the original fort layout as little as possible.
Did they excavate there as well, or did they?
We
Okay.
did that in 2016.
How long did that take?
We probably spent about 4 months, I think.
That's not long.
And then another year to write we do 2 foot by 2 foot squares.
Right.
Yeah. And then open up the bigger ones we want.
That's cool. So what else? Have you guys found any other structures around here? Or?
So last February they redid the driveway for this place, and so right about where the handicap parking space is, we found what appears to be one of the oldest cabins on the property. So it was possibly an officer's quarters when they were constructing the 1827 fort.
Okay.
That one there, we thought maybe it was like a brick kiln or a mess area, but it ended up having just a full mix of stuff, suggesting that a person was living there.
How big's that?
That would have been smaller than this block here.
Okay.
It was probably something like 10 by 10 maybe.
Okay.
Actually, this is 10 by 12. But going back to what we have here, we've got the fill sand here,
Right.
and then you've got this dark gray is the same time as the house
Okay.
when that was occupied. So that was occupied up until I think the 70s.
Okay.
At the very least up until the 60s. And then below this here we have this the plow zone. So this was farmed throughout the late 1800s, early 1900s. So that's a mix of the A horizon and then the yellow stuff below that. And then you get the yellow stuff would have been about when the fort was occupied.
Okay. And did you guys find charcoal and stuff from the burning or anything like that?
Yes, we
or?
do get deposits. We do get burns, posts that were burned and such. But so right here, for example, this is clay, and so the clay is another 2 or 3 feet further down.
No, you cannot go in there.
It looks so fun.
Yeah.
So what this suggests to us is that the posts were placed, and these are roughly about these big, and this big. There were several of them around in this area, and then we're getting spatters of clay over here.
Is that like cypress, or what was their main construction wood back then?
Of the wood, they would have used any wood available.
Okay,
So it would have been a lot of oak, white pine, because when you think about how long this fort was occupied,
Right.
and then on top of that, there were several Seminole villages in the vicinity as well, and then the Indian Agency. So this all would have been deforested because they would have gone through wood as fast as they could use it.
Okay.
Because it would have been, everything would have gone off of burning firewood, and then they had to reconstruct 2 forts and then numerous structures around here. So this all would have just been clear cut for probably a couple miles. So they would, by the second fort, they were basically, like this is probably a little nicer than it would have looked. By the second, so these are halved logs. By the second fort, they were probably quartering logs.
Just to save trees.
Get whatever that you
last life of materials. Yeah.
Yep. So with these bits of clay here, what we're getting nails in them, and we've been able to track them by basically things like this, where we piece plot items. I will take a metal detector, determine where metal objects are. I'll take a trowel and just dig it up before I shovel skim this entire area. Then I can mark the coordinates of where I'm getting
and then sift everything else.
Yep, and then sift everything else. So we've got a general level bag. I've got specific bags for all this. And so we plotted that there are a lot of nails coming out of some of these clay features. So what that appears to be are posts that were dug down, and we're not getting large charcoal signatures. So these posts were probably ripped out of the ground, and basically the nails come out with them.
Cool.
And so what we'll do is we'll probably take a few days before we start the next part of the project, where we put in a couple more units. Kind of plot, try to determine by the size of the nails whether these are interior walls, exterior walls, and then kind of get an idea of what the size of it is, what directions do we want to go, and then get enough to give the city and the Fort King Heritage Association enough information to get an accurate replication.
It's pretty cool. So how much longer do you think it'll take to
We'll probably be out here for about another month.
Okay, and are you guys from the university, or what's your?
So we're with the Gulf Archaeology Research Institute.
Okay.
It's we've got a nonprofit in Crystal River, Florida.
Okay.
So we do a lot of prehistoric coastal stuff, a lot of environmental archaeology, and then Seminole Wars archaeology. So
That's
battlefields, forts. So most of what we do is mostly grant funded.
Okay.
This one here, this is actually funded by the Fort King Heritage Association themselves, the civilian support organization for this place.
So where'd you go to school?
I went to University of South Florida.
Okay, cool. So is this what you wanted to do your whole life, or?
Generally, yeah.
That's awesome.
It's like all the joys of being a historian, but you actually get to go outside.
Yep. Yes, it's Holly. Yeah, she's 13. She's
sweet face.
Yeah, she's like a cat. Someday she wants to be friendly, someday she could care, so she tolerates people.
Oh, he's covered in cat hair, so.
Yeah. Nice. Is there any other like spots around you'd recommend that'd be cool to check out like this, or?
Well, so I mean, for one, I would go to if you're gonna be here. If you've never been to Dade's Battle in Bushnell.
Okay, how far is that?
About 45 minutes south of here.
Oh, okay, because I'm down.
In fact, yeah, it's in Sumter County. So
okay,
if you're
yeah,
villages,
absolutely.
then,
okay,
you're really close.
Yeah.
So that is usually the battle that's attributed to the start of the war.
Okay.
So December, late December 28th, 1835.
But in this case, everything was found on site. You have a built-in cabinet over here. It's got some military. It's got buttons and so forth that were found on site. Now this is an 1841 mountain howitzer. This will fire a 12-pound shot, 1,005 yards, which is a little over half a mile. Here's your 12-pound shot. You have to try it. So,
Who goes and retrieves it?
the powder mine.
Is that really? You actually shoot it?
Well, no, we can't shoot this one. No, we shoot it once, but then the rangers would get mad.
And the neighbors.
Now, when we go out and shoot it for, if we go and shoot it for the shows, we just use maybe a half a pound of powder. Now, this is just a casting. It's a hollow shot. If you notice this on the top here, there was a tool that would unscrew this plug. And they would fill it with whatever they had. They had musket ball, bird shot even, nails, extra gunpowder, and they screw the plug back in. Some of the plugs had a rudimentary trail where if you lengthen and shorten it, it was a fuse, a timer. Yeah. And the thing would go up to 3 minutes. And the idea was when it discharged from the barrel of the cannon, when it would land, then 2 or 3 minutes later, anti-personnel. This bottle here and this bag are the only period correct, well not correct, but they were authentic to the time. These are as old as the war was. Everything else is reproduction. This bottle was found on site. Hardtack biscuits, these are real. Everything else is rubber and plastic. But the hardtack is 15 years old. You can still eat it.
You might be able to. Yeah, probably.
Well, the recipe is salt, flour, and water. The Army would bake these and put them in the wooden boxes and store them here. There's a rumor that the United States government was serving hardtack that made in the Mexican War to our boys in 1860. The way they would prepare it, you could try to eat it like it is, but it was basically a big, thick saltine. You could float it in the coffee. The coffee would absorb into the bread, and you make like an oatmeal. Or you take the salt pork here, you cook that in the pan, render it down to its fats, float the hardtack in the fats, and you get a bacon-flavored pancake. It really doesn't sound too terribly bad. Our Seminole warrior here, we had invited the Seminole tribe of Florida to help us out with this place. They created this outfit for us. All the needlework is hand done and so forth. Again, we wanted to make sure they got represented properly. The muskets are proper to the time period. The uniform is proper to the time period. Now, this is about the only time the United States government had a little bit of smarts. They had a summer uniform as well. The blue uniform is winter. It's woolen. The leather forage cap.
That's awful big.
And it's awful uncomfortable too, because when I do reenactment, I've wound down a couple times. It should hold water. It's about the size of a horse water bucket, and it probably hold about 2 dozen eggs. So, but just not a very practical cap. But then the other alternative is like the fellow with the axes, he had the wheel cap. I have one of those personally. I like that one better than this one, but it's still silly looking.
What was the summer uniform?
It was white canvas, same cut, but just unbleached canvas.
Okay, so here's the Osceola lean-to. It's a traditional style, so it was built by some members of the Osceola tribe, and they use it during the reenactment. So we're here at the Seep Spring. It's a couple hundred yards down from the fort, which is up on a hill. And this is the water source for the fort when it was here. So this is a seep/spring, that fresh water that comes up here that was used for the fort. How's that? That's pretty special. So remember, friends, do what you can, where you are with what you have, and try to get out and do some day tripping. Oh, and don't forget, meet up on the Mohican, June 12th to 14th at Mohican Wilderness Campground in Loudonville, Ohio. Holy salmonella's potato salad. It's about 87 degrees in the FLA. You get pocket lint in it, then it sounds like it's got pocket lint in it. It's better than toe jam. See, I'm looking at myself, but it's backwards. So this Shetland pony walks into a bar. The bartender looks up at him and says, "Hey, why the long face?" So there I was, stranded on a deserted island. It was me, 7 coconuts, and a tiki bar, but no bartender. I didn't know what to do.